Greetings, everybody. Catherine here with For a Life Worth Living, and this would be part 2 of the Storykeepers and how to process our stories and release them. Not just process them, but release them to where you're left with a story without pain, without disturbance, without dysregulation. It's just a story. And when I say just a story, that is not a phrase to minimize what anybody's been through. I'm just saying it drops the sensitivity to our story. That's been my experience. So back to the Storykeepers. This is a moose. This is pretty strong. This would be the one who is in an abusive marriage and got out, thank God. This is the deer, which was my younger self, like young adult, late teenager. This is a raccoon, which would represent my older teenage years. This is a porcupine, which would be my younger teenage years, and this would be the infant in me. No, actually, I think this is elementary. I'm not sure. So I want to talk about this one, the porcupine representation that is a protector. One of the personalities or fragmentations or whatever you want to call it was a protector. And the protector, I actually went through a phase where actually this, in my story, this would have been a 16-year-old. Whew. She was something else. She's the warrior in me, and she'll go into fight mode at the drop of a hat. She likes to fight, and she fights to win. That's what she tells me. So, okay, that's all very good, but she's not in charge anymore. And we had a lot of conflict, inner conflict in me, establishing that I was the leader and she wasn't. And over time, as different ones, like, what would happen, it's kind of funny, but what would happen is a Storykeeper would bypass her and tell me the story, and she'd get mad about it. It's kind of funny. If you can just imagine having a household of girls. Or, and as I listened and wrote down each story, and I even wrote down the dialogue. You know, you don't have to be a published author to do this. Just write it down. It doesn't matter. Or you can draw stick figures to illustrate the stories. They need to be heard. They need to be heard. And so this one would see that this one came and told her story, and I helped her. So when she was done, when we got through that, this is not a 5-minute process, by the way. This one's experience that this one saw would, well, I'm going to do that. And then she'd tell me her story. And then as this one saw these telling their story, she would tell me her story. So this was not a linear process like this and this and this and this and this. It wasn't. It was more about being available. And one of the most fragmenting abusive procedures is neglect. So a lot of these stories were just neglect. You know, I would have reasonable needs as a child, and it just wasn't there. You know, I was either hungry, or I didn't have clothes that fit me, or, you know, all these little bitty things that I had to pretend didn't matter in order to survive, because when I acted like they did matter, I would get in big trouble and get hurt again. Then it would be overt abuse. Like covert abuse is neglect. Overt abuse is verbal lashings and getting beaten and things like that. So the abuse pattern is systemic, and how I internalized it was systemic. So I'm calling my internal system the Storykeepers. Now, the little baby, I was told when I was 56 years old that my mother had planned on aborting me, and she was getting things in place for that. And she just told me the whole story, and it explained everything about why she didn't like me, you know. She thought she was being friendly to me, telling me that, and it just devastated me that she would even tell me. She didn't do it to be nice. She did it to gaslight me. So anyway, just a lot of processing, and I've been doing this for Storykeepers came to me about 12 years ago. So, and I'm not saying every day for 12 years I've been doing this, because I've been living and having fun and working at different times, doing the best I can, detoxing off of being over medicated. So it was a learn as you go process, and it worked. Now, I would have to create space to hear these stories, because it would be very painful, and I would allow myself to cry. I live alone, so that wasn't a problem for me. It's like, I'm okay with crying alone. It was one of my coping things. And so, maybe it would take an hour, the whole scene. Maybe the whole scene would take an hour, And my today person, talking about me, who wrote down the stories, I would walk away from that experience going, well, that explains a lot, And it's like, they would tell me things that my today person was not aware of, that explained the dynamics in my family. And each time I walked away going, in little pieces, that what happened to me, what they did to me, was not my fault. They told me it was my fault. It told me because I was a lesser person. They told me because I deserved it. And as I listened to their story, I'm listening to little girls, and I'm going, you didn't deserve that. That's not your responsibility. And so there's a back and forth conversation about it. I hope this makes sense to you, and I just can't tell you how impactful this idea and this process has been for me. And if you're not sure about it or something like that, show this video to your therapist, if you're going to a therapist or some other professional who will help you process these stories. And I did do that. Occasionally I'd have a therapist, and I'd say, I've got a story I can't figure out. I would write as much as I could, and then I'd take it to her and read it to her, and then she'd help me process it. So you don't have to do this by yourself, okay? You do not. There are professionals out there who will hear you, but if you feel comfortable doing so, introduce this idea to your therapist, and maybe they'll get it and help you in your processing and releasing. It's all about releasing. It's not about staying stuck. It's about releasing and setting yourself free. So God bless you, and I hope you find value in this information. Please like, share, and subscribe.